Good evening, everybody, and welcome to issue number 70, YMA Map Chat, the importance of stability in life, more than just balance. And welcome, Mr. Yarwood. Thank you so much for being here.
Hello.
And I'm going to let you get started. Whoop, whoop.
Yeah, last week we kind of got started on the the difference between stability and balance, and how stability is more, it's your foundation, right? Balance is you're trying to teeter totter, do that type of stuff, but stability is what keeps you grounded and able to adjust and move, and maybe make mistakes but recover quickly, as opposed to falling off your whatever it is you're doing. So we're kind of discussing how that's important pretty much with everything that we're doing in life, and in taekwondo, obviously what I do, in work, in family, in school, in church, wherever you are. Having that stable ground underneath you is what is able to allow you to keep moving forward, keep growing, and keep becoming better than you were before. So it's balance was like, think of, like I said, a teeter totter. You're going from one side to the other, back and forth, trying to get that balance in the middle, and it's not working. You got too much on one side, not enough on the other. Whereas stability, when you have the stability underneath you, you can move around a little bit more. You can make mistakes. You can readjust, that kind of stuff. And you're not worried about falling off or falling down or whatever the case may be. So, we had a long discussion. I think we're ready to move on to the next part of it, just because it got to be, I had originally planned for one, but it's one of those ones that kind of turned into two, just because there's so much that can kind of go into what we're talking about.
Yeah, and I think the big thing was, we left with the question: are you trying to balance in your life? What is it that are you going paycheck to paycheck? Have you created stability in your life? What does it look like? And what are some of the things that you can do to level yourself up to be somebody that is stable versus somebody that is balance and stability both elude your chase, the game.
Yeah, we talk about, like, with our next topic was stability builds trust, right? In yourself and others. And it's like, when you know somebody who is stable, who's consistent, who you can count on to do what they're going to do, say what they're going to say, say what they're going to do, and then do it. You want, those are the kind of people that you want around you, because you can trust that they're going to get the job done, right? Somebody who's says they got life balanced, if they got balanced, if you add something to their schedule or whatever it is, that throws them off, right? They're not able to handle something like that. They got to adjust. I can't do that. I got to do this. I don't have this. If somebody who's stable, you can, if something comes up, they're able to make adjustments without getting, themselves out of sorts, or having to cancel one other thing to fit you in somewhere, right? They have the ability to be able to kind of shift and move without falling out. So when you're stable and consistent, people can rely on you, right? They know what they're going to get from you. Sometimes it could be a little bit more challenging than others, but they know, the foundation is there to be able to answer the call when they need it.
Yeah, I know, for one of the things that being a little transparent about my world, I currently am, as many of you know, I'm a business coach and second own ice cream shops, and last year added a fourth one that was definitely is a little bit more than we expected. There were more headaches than we expected. There was more cost in the beginning. And, I look at how that rocked the stability of what we basically created for the first 2 years of being in business with the other 3 stores. And, um, it still continues this winter. It has really pushed the limits of, for me, where I'm at in my business, financially, where I'm at in my stress levels and all of that. Like, it has taken me out of what I would call a comfort zone, and really taken me to the point of, what does it look like to survive going through the winter? What does it look like? And being able to trust in the levels of where I'm at, financially, physically, comparatively. It really has been trying to build stability at this next level. And what does that look like? Am I, what are the things that I have to be responsible for? And, am I in communication about not being there? Am I in communication about what it takes to make the next step? And what does that look like if I don't? And I think these are what is that next level of responsibility and trust in not only in myself and others, as Mr. Yar were just talking about, but where do you set that bar and level, and what things do you have to continue to build and put in place to take you to the next level? And I think where martial arts, it's a constant learning of leveling up, then being comfortable in that next level, training to that next level, being successful at that next level, and then what's the next test to get to that next level. And it's a small microcosmic picture of your life, because you can then take it out and go look in your life and see the same thing. And what does that look like? And how do you comparatively look to grow across the sections and make your life stable? So I know that was a ton of information and a ton of location, but I'm going to pass the mic over to you, and we'll just kind of play with it.
Yeah, we think, going back to the martial arts part, right? We focus on the fundamentals, the basics, because the fundamentals and basics are what make up everything else that we do. And if we don't understand how to do the basic stuff, how to do the fundamental stuff, build that foundation underneath us, we can't teach the next level stuff because they're not ready, right? Because they don't have the stability underneath them to be able to do the next level stuff. So every level we get to, we still focus on the basics. We still do the basic moves, the basic kicks, the basic strikes, the basic blocks, and then add to them as we go. And then we go back and we make sure that the fundamentals and the basics are still good, so that the advanced ones are going to be better. So it's never we get to the next level and then stay there, right? We still make sure that the underneath stuff is solid, because what happens is if you're not taking care of that, right, you're going to get top heavy, and then guess what happens? Balance, right? Your balance is off. So if you don't have that foundation underneath you, that stability, you're not going to even be able to balance, right? So building the foundation underneath them, whether it be the basic kicks or we work on our life skill stuff. They have to have the foundational things to be able to go out into the world, to go to school, to have the discipline, the confidence, the the understanding of how the things work around them, how to interact with things, how to deal with people. All those things are foundational for that, for kids and parents too, to interact in the real world as well. So it's always back to where we're the most stable and growing from there, and then build a little bit more of a foundation underneath us, and that's how we rise up, is always having it solid underneath us. We don't want to go too vertical all at once and not have anything underneath us to be able to balance. So the lessons of stability and building and basics and foundational stuff is important in how we do everything that we're doing when we're teaching Taekwondo, because like I said, it's not just about the striking, kicking, punching, whatever. It's about the life skills that they're learning and how their life is stable in every aspect of what they're doing.
Well, and I think the other thing, and I can't remember how you say this, so I'm just going to, hopefully it'll jog your memory and you can complete it, because I know it's going to come out in a little bit of a jumble when I say it. But there's something that you always point out, right, about the basics, because you and I have chatted about it, where kids do the shortcuts, and to get it done, and then when you get to be a black belt, it's like all of a sudden, you know how you put it is like, now suddenly as a black belt, you're ready to really start learning and do the training that's required to be somebody that's proficient at
Yep.
Taekwondo.
Yep.
And if you don't do the basics correctly, it's where you almost have to refocus and reteach people how to.
Mm-hmm.
I'm messing it up, so I'm going to hand it over to you to finish
Yeah,
saying.
no, we and so we just had a couple of new black belts start, and they're understanding what I was talking about as their color belts. They're coming up, right? It's always working on the basics, the foundation stuff. It's like when you get to black belt, I don't want to have to reteach you everything that you learned as a color belt. You already know everything that you needed to do to get to this point, right? And then when you start, because you're essentially, as a first degree black belt, you're essentially a white belt all over again, right? But it's the next level of white belt. And if you don't have the original level of white belt foundation, the level white belt of black belt, you're gonna struggle, right? So you got to kind of go back to the basics, back to the foundational stuff, and then I got to start over. And it gets away. The time that it takes for me to reteach you the things I already taught you takes away from your time learning to the new stuff, right? So it's a challenge for me as an instructor to go, I already taught you all this stuff. Why do I have to reteach you?
Well, and
Right.
I think why I suddenly remembered this. I've been away now for a while, and I came back um, just a couple weeks ago and was doing a workout and going through and doing the warm up, and I realized as we were, um, as I was going through the forms, you were like, Les, your footwork is off. And I had realized that in some of the practicing I'd been doing, I'd gotten lazy.
Oh yeah. So you're talking about practice makes habit.
Oh, and my and where your feet is supposed to be parallel in one of the stances, I was ducking it because it's easier, quote
Yep.
unquote, to duck it.
Yep.
And yet it's not. And once again, you may have to correct what I'm saying here, because I think this will, it may be easier, but you're not as stable, you're not as balanced in the ducking of it, so it takes away. So when
Yep.
you come to do the form, you're off.
Yep.
And then to fix it, to go back, because I had been doing it wrong for quite a while,
Yep.
was
You have to unlearn it and relearn it. Yep. That's the thing is we always ask the kids. They know the answer now, right? But I'll always ask them. I'll say practice makes, and I'll say perfect. I'm like, no, practice does not make perfect.
perfect practice.
When they say perfect practice make, and they say no, practice makes habit. If you practice wrong and you're really good at practicing wrong, you're wrong. You're just really good at it, right? If you practice correctly, you're making good habits, and then you're going to be good going forward. So if you're practicing wrong and you're getting really good at being wrong, it's that much harder to get you back to being right because you've already built those habits. So we really encourage people to practice properly and do it properly so that they practice makes habit.
And I think, you keep speaking about the kids, but which I thank you, because
Like,
I hear myself being called a kid. I just know that, here I'm not a kid by a long shot, and yet I'm the one that's still doing that, because I was practicing off,
mm-hmm.
a little off. It's And I think, why I'm kind of trying to wrestle with this, because I think this is a very good point to take and look, through this kind of cracked lens at the rest of your life, because it's something that, if you are can really blow up in your own life. Right. I've, in my business, and my personal life, I dealt with a partnership in 2015 that was, that blew up. I made some mistakes. To make a long story very short, we ended up in court. I ended up winning after 5-year battle. Um, and all during that time, I, uh, you know, let my taxes sit there, because I was dealing with, well, I can't, how am I going to work this? Now hindsight being 2020, it would have been a good time to find somebody in the tax world, IRS, Minnesota, uh, Department of Revenue, and start creating back then, that I could have been in communication with and coach me through where I'm at today, instead of I just kind of left it and got into bad habit. And now I'm in the process of restoring integrity to that. And it is, uh, let me just tell you, it's been a 10-year journey. And, you know, having to repair that and
Yep.
restore the integrity is a mess.
It's always easier to do it right the first time.
And, it's
Or smaller mistakes.
yeah, and it's it's really easy to go, well, if you had done this, it would have made it easier by now, right? That's lesson learned, right?
Yep.
I tell people, a lot of my clients, I went through and got a PhD, and have been doing graduate work for the last 10 years in what not to do in business,
Yep.
which is what has really empowered me as a coach, because I have a track record of, don't do this.
Yep.
These are the experts.
Yep.
Communicate with them first and foremost and upfront. And I have a couple of clients, that I've had to say, look, stop. Don't do what you're about to do. Well, but why? I said, because I'm telling you from experience, if you go down this path, it's not going to produce the fruit that looks like,
Yep.
right? Just like with my duck walk, as opposed to being parallel, it was more comfortable. It was easier
Mm-hmm.
at the time,
Yep.
um, from doing a mistake and being hurt, and coming back quicker. But now I have to unlearn it.
Yeah, a lot, and a lot of our, you know, more veteran black belts have been telling these, students who are, getting ready to become black belts or who are recently black belts that, hey, this is what you should be working on. These are the things. Mr. Yarwood's not messing around. This is the stuff that you need to work on, right? And they've been telling them just like I've been telling them. And it's like, I don't know if they just don't listen, they don't believe it, they don't, whatever it is, it just doesn't sink in. And then we get to black belt. I'm a different instructor at black belt, right? My expectations for black belts goes way, way up, because if you've gotten to the point where you're a black belt, then you should be able to do all of the things that you've been doing for the last 4 years without thinking, right? You should already know how to do everything. I shouldn't have to reteach you anything. So when you get to black belt, I have a lot less patience for things, because you should already know that. We should be getting you moving forward faster. And if I'm reteaching you other things, my I don't know, I guess I'm just not as nice. I don't know what it is, but it's just how it is, right? They put themselves in a position that I warned them about prior to, and they're still there. And it's just, it can be kind of frustrating for me that they're not working on the stability of their rank. They're working on the balance of the stuff that they didn't do to begin with. So it creates more work for me and more work for them, and just frustration, because it's like, you should already know this stuff, right? I need to be able to build on what you already know, and I can't build on what isn't there, right? So then I have to rebuild their foundation so that they can get further, but it takes that much extra time, right, to get them to where they already should be. So it can be frustrating, and they start to realize that as a color belt, I'm nice. As a black belt, not so much, right? I'm still nice, but I'm very matter of fact. I tell them exactly what I want and what I expect, and if I don't get it, then there's going to be some issues.
Yeah, I
So,
mean, I remember there's a couple people that turned into black belts, and this was probably a couple years ago. That for them, they hit that milestone and they stopped coming.
mm-hmm,
And part of why it seemed like they stopped coming was because they got frustrated that instead of having achieved something and being at a pinnacle and having that as a kind of a thing, they're now, the bar is reset, and it's like, okay, you
mm-hmm.
got here and you
It's
made
a
it here
it's a
now.
mile marker, not a ending.
Yeah.
I always tell them they're at the base of the mountain right now. They're just starting to climb.
Yeah. It's like you just spent, and I think when you look at it, one of the examples of that is going to university, coming out of high school, where you have spent 12 years learning how to learn and learning
Mm-hmm.
the basics. And I think another great example of failure in that department is how some schools have allowed people to shuffle through the system because they're star athletes,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then most recently, I heard something crazy about a star athlete trying to sue his high school because they passed him because he was having problems in college because he couldn't read.
Mm-hmm.
And he's blaming the school for it. Right. And, for me, uh, responsibility begins with the willingness to be cause in the matter of your own life.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a context in which you choose moment by moment, day by day, to be responsible. And there's no shame, there's no blame, there's no right or wrong. There's just, in that space of, I'm going to choose to be responsible for where I'm at, because that's my choice of where I'm at. I can look and sure, I can blame the state of Minnesota. I can get frustrated with the state of Minnesota Department of Revenue, or I could get frustrated with the federal tax system, the IRS. They're in place and they haven't changed. I'm the one that has to be responsible. And I have
Mm-hmm.
realized the responsibility that I've set. Now, what's really great is how you bring your attitude to the conversation and the conversations that you can have. You can recreate something, reinvent something. I've heard stories of people that have, like gone to fix their situation, to restore it, to balance it, create stability. And the government goes, you know what? We can see that you've been really working hard on this. Let's see if we can work together to create something that works.
Mm-hmm.
Whole different experience,
Yep.
other than the person that comes at and gets really
Fighting the entire time.
and then gets mad on the phone and treats them like, well, you work for me type of attitude.
Mm-hmm.
It's like,
Yep.
well, yes, Mr. Yarwood works for, in the case of Taekwondo, you work for your student who's paying you. Also, though, the student is working towards something that's been created for a purpose,
Mm-hmm.
and it's set, and the path is clear that
Yep.
it's this way for a
Yep.
reason.
Yep. Yeah, everybody's on their own path. The destination is the same, right? The training is the same. The system is the same. How you respond to the system is up to you, right? If you're not willing to do it properly, then you're not going to reap the benefits of it. You're going to have issues with it because it doesn't fit your mold. It's like, well, sorry, it's not your mold. It's the mold, and either you fit into it or you don't. If you choose not to, that's perfectly okay. But if you want to be part of the process, then you have to follow the process. You don't get to change it. It's not yours to change. It's the process.
And there might be exceptions, right? That get
Well, of course, there always is.
right. They get created, right? I know one of your students is in a wheelchair, right?
Mm-hmm.
And who's what is she, a third degree black belt?
Second degree.
Second degree. And they've the system has been worked by you and others to create a place where she's still leveling up to
Mm-hmm.
the degree to which works
Yep.
for where she's at. Now that's an understandable different stability, different balance
Mm-hmm.
that's created
Yep.
for something that's an exception. You to be the person that comes in and says, well, I want mine to change too. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, that's not how it works.
Yep. But they're still, even though they're in a wheelchair, they're still working within the system.
Yep.
It's just we adapt it to fit a little bit better, right?
Yes.
They still follow all the same rules. They still have to do all the same things. They still all do all the same training. We just modify how it works for them, right? So I don't create a whole separate system for them. We just fit them into it where they fit, right? So they're still on the same path. It's just a matter of modification along the way to adapt to what it is, the needs that they have for fitting into the system.
And you still can see, I'm and I can't remember the name, which is not important, but there was a young gal that had, one side of her arm was
Mhm.
weak and her leg
In a brace. Yep.
brace. Yep. And you could still see, once you got to know her, you could still see where she was showing up in her conditional environment
Mm-hmm.
and not producing 100%. So
Mm-hmm.
you set that level expectation for her in her environment, still with a goal of hitting 100%.
Yep.
And so she still went through some of the same struggles, some of the
Yep.
same things, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's kind of how I operate. Is like I don't allow people to limit themselves.
Yep.
Right. I don't care if you're in a wheelchair. I don't care if you got braces on. I don't care if you have no limbs. It doesn't matter to me. Right. We have expectations. Right. And I'm not going to let you make excuses. I'm not going to let you cheat your way through things, give you exception. It's not going to work that way. Right. We're going to figure out how you can do things. And then I'm going to expect 100% from you within those parameters. Right. I'm not going to give you an excuse to, well, I'm in a wheelchair, so I don't have to do those things. No, you still have to do those things. It's just we modify how you do them, right? So I look at it from the standpoint is like I'm here to push you past your what you think are your limits, right? You might not like me all the time with it because I don't back down from stuff, right? I don't allow you to create excuses for yourself. I'm going to push you, right? You're going to get pissed off sometimes. You're going to get mad, but ultimately you're going to realize why I'm doing it. I'm not doing it out of spite. I'm not doing it because I don't like you. I'm doing it because I know you have it in you and I want to get it out of you. So to me, it's a matter of it's all up here. It's where you decide to make those changes in your life that are going to push you past what you think you can do. Whether you're in a wheelchair, you got braces on, or you have no physical problems, it doesn't matter. I'm going to push you. And that's just how it is.
And I think that this is an important thing to talk about in life. And maybe next for our next meeting, we can look at some of this. Right? There's a name of a person that I want to throw out there, and Nick Vujicic, right? Who's an evangelist and he's a motivational speaker, and was born with tetra amelia syndrome, which is a condition characterized by the absence of arms and legs, right? And he was pretty much told that he would be wheelchair bound. He'd be blah 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 blah, and yet he learned how to get up himself. He's learned how to swim. People said, he's learned how to do things in the way that he is at a level, and he's now leading a life. He's married, he's got kids, he's completely overcome it. If you look, he's got a phenomenal life. He's basically a multimillionaire, that travels the world, inspiring people to, no matter what your condition is, no matter where you are, there's a place that you can still create within the system, a leveling up that gets you. And I think in this piece on stability is what kids and teams actually need. Kids don't need perfect balance. They need clear expectations, predictable consequences. Adults who don't emotionally yo-yo, i.e. parents that aren't
Yep.
And the same goes for team, students, and families. And I'm going to throw in here adults.
Yep.
Right? Because whenever we get triggered as an adult, whenever we get something upsets us, it triggers us to and that trigger is a protective system that's your subconscious, your monkey brain has stuck in you, that has you try to survive. And you go back to the age at which that first time where you didn't overcome it and you dealt with and you achieved a certain level. And you'll hear people say, stop acting like a child, right? You'll hear this to people speaking to people in their 20s or their 30s because they never completed doing the basics and going to that next level. Like they stopped off halfway through the belts.
They didn't pass the test.
And didn't pass the test. And then they get frustrated because they're not a black belt, right? And they can't, and they're not receiving the benefits of being a black belt in their life. It's like, well, yeah, because there's a tremendous amount of stuff that happens when you get to that level and move through it. Like the last point that you have made here, stability isn't rigid, it's resilient. As we were talking about somebody in a wheelchair, the killing the myth, stability does not mean boring, stagnant, or soft, right? Or breaking the rules. It's true stability absorbs the impact, adapts without collapsing the system, holds shape under a load. It's not weakness, it's called engineering. So you, Mr. Yar, would have, create and engineer a system with what tools you have to be able to, and push them to level up into that space.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I could talk about. I think that this is a thing that gets me excited, right? Because I can look at my whole life through a microscope and
Yeah.
see where I have fallen off this track and had to pull myself back up onto the track.
I think we can. That might be a good topic for the next one.
I saw you writing, so yeah.
Yeah, it's I just put level up, pushing through adversity, dealing with your current situation.
Yeah,
that's what I wrote.
And I think how not to make yourself wrong for being there.
Yeah.
And to just to realize where you've stopped.
Yep.
You've stopped doing what's necessary to make the next step.
Yep.
And now you're frustrated and blaming the step for just being the step.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, well, yeah, there's the next step, which requires you to move another 12 inches up. I mean, and I think this will be a fun example. I think this will actually make you laugh. If you've ever gone up a flight of stairs and for some reason the engineering's off and the last stair is it's like 12 and a half inches versus 12, what ends up happening? People
trip,
constantly hit that top step and have to like catch themselves every single time. And they're like, what's going on? When the integrity was out on that last step.
Yep. Yep.
So remember, as in this conversation that we're completing tonight, balance is a moment, stability is a lifestyle. And I like what you wrote here. Chase balance if you want to feel good today. Woo! Build stability if you want to be strong for the long haul and capable of withstanding the impacts of some of the breakdowns of day-to-day life.
Yep.
When life gets ugly, balance won't save you. Stability will. And, for those of you that may have an interest in architecture, this is what the Japanese have done along the coastlines because of the tsunamis and the weather. They have done wonders to build structures that can withstand the punishment, as opposed to let's just throw the same thing back up there and hope for a different result.
Yep.
All right. Well, I think we've gone over about 10 minutes tonight, and I'll take the responsibility of being the one that kind of went off on some fun tangents, just because this is I'm passionate about this kind of this topic and the results, because it's so involved with the integrity of your life.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else you want to finish up with, Mr. Yarwood?
Well, I just think that find areas in your life that you are balancing and try to build stability underneath them. I think you'll be a lot happier with everything else that's going on. If you're trying to juggle things while riding a unicycle, it's not going to work, right? You're not a circus act. So find stability in your life, build upon that, and apply it to all the things that you're doing, right? you're going to be off in certain places, and when you're stable, being off is a lot easier to deal with than if you're trying to juggle things. And then say you're juggling 5 balls and I just throw a 6th one at you. Now what? Right? Now you got to juggle 6 balls while riding unicycle. That's not going to work. So find your balance issues, find your stability, and work with that, and that's where you're going to grow from.
Yeah, and once again, I appreciate you taking this time to create this video cast and have some of this be available for people to look through a couple of different directions, looking from the martial arts aspect, and then looking at the life aspects and the impacts therein. So thank you so much. And
Yes, sir.
with that, I'm going to go ahead and play an outro.